Kimothy.
Welcome to Alberta, Amy.
You're 2 hours ahead of me now, which
Baby, I'm always ahead of you.
which means I can catch up to your morning schedule now because you're usually up at the crack of dawn, and now it has moved. So now that I'm texting you at the crack of dawn, it's like aligned.
I know we're aligned, but I will be in British Columbia not too long, so we'll have to
Three
realign. But this
hours.
morning I was awake at 5 because as you know, I go to bed when the sun goes down because like I don't like bears. And I was awake at 5. And so I was hiding and stayed in bed because I didn't want to wake up all the neighbors because they say quiet time starts at 7. And, obviously other people don't respect that. So finally at 6:30, I gave up and came over to the visitor center so that I could use the Wi-Fi. This is, I had no signal for almost 12 hours. For me, that was a lot. So yeah, Dinosaur
Meanwhile,
Provincial Park. So I know I'm a dinosaur, but now I'm with dinosaur fossils.
I was gonna say,
And I
meanwhile,
got
when I camp, I mean, within respect, I don't do it too early, but I have like a mini blender I bring for my smoothies. I just smother it with a pillow a little bit. You gotta get it done.
you smother it with a pillow. That sounds like a criminal offense or something.
Smother
But
the
yeah,
pillow.
I was gonna show you. So at the visitor center, they have coffee, they have breakfast sandwiches. Okay, just as we do this, someone starts their generator behind me.
Well, we can't hear it, so it's all good.
I know. I think they're going away. This is the issue with living on the road is that for me as being an incredibly unflexible person for most of my life, it's like, okay, here we are. We're doing a podcast from a car because I couldn't get a signal at my beautiful campsite.
Yeah, it's all good though. So
It's all good.
we've got a great guest on with us today.
We do. We
We're
do. And yeah, I'm it's a tough subject, but I'm glad that we'll explain when we introduce her to you, but I'm glad that people have their entry into the Alzheimer and dementia world with her because very compassionate person. But as you know, I have experience with memory loss, not only myself from a concussion, but my dad. And
Mhm.
so this is going to be, as Max Keeping used to say back on the TV days, news you can use.
Well, and we have seen such an influx of people with cognitive decline. We spoke about this on another show, but it's pretty overwhelming, I'd say. There's just a lot of people. And the thing is that it doesn't happen the same for everybody. There's a trajectory, but it's not the same. And somebody's line of it's too much is a different person's, another line for somebody else. And when we guide people through elder care search and through strategy sessions and whatnot, we're taking best guess because it depends on the type of dementia it is. It depends on, the person's personality, generally speaking, whether they're going to be violent, whether they're going to be not violent. There's just so many factors, right? And there's a lot of caregivers out there that really are looking for a plan. They're trying to get help, but they don't know when. Like, when is that line for me? When should I get help? And I'm a big fan of getting it soon and often, and just kind of making sure those contacts are there early. And so I think today, with Debbie coming in, that'll give some solid contacts for people, no matter where they are in Canada, right? Because the Alzheimer's Society is across Canada. So it'll give
Well,
them.
Debbie deals with Ottawa and Renfrew County, but amazingly, yesterday I woke up in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. I had spent 24 hours there and drove by what is no longer my grandparents' house because someone has built a big, huge mansion on it. But I did pass Pioneer Village, where it was revolutionary way back in the day that she transitioned as she moved through the system. And sometimes if she went wandering, they would find her on the front step of the old house, which was probably a good 200 meters away. Like she
Yeah.
wasn't across town or anything, but she would just go for a walk and go and sit on her front step. So I was having memories as I was touring Moose Jaw, looking at I took um my dad's ashes to their gravesite, my grandparents, which I had never been to. And but I was thinking a lot about how um memory impacts my family a lot, a lot.
Yeah.
Me for a different reason. I got bonked in the head in a head-on collision, but yeah, it's and there were bright moments too. She didn't suffer all the time, but it's because she was in a place where she was well loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, let's bring Debbie in. Let's talk about it, see if we can get some help for our listeners. And let's go. Sound good?
let's go.
All right.
I think I just do this podcast so I can hang out with my friends as I travel across the world.
I think that's valid.
I get to see you at least once a week, although we do it more. And Debbie is joining us today. I actually refer to as DL because I met her through my very good friend when they started dating, and he would call her Deborah Lynn, and then we shortened it to DL. And welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And it's nice to see your face.
You looking so gorgeous today.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I have never said your last name out loud, so I'm going to let you pronounce it as your Finnish warrior self.
Heitto.
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 Yeah,
This is why I refer to Deborah Lynn. So,
fair enough.
Amy, I know that this is your area of expertise, but it's so weird for me to call you Debbie. Debbie works for the Alzheimer Society, serving Ottawa and Renfrew County, and for people who have to enter that world after a diagnosis. I could think of nobody else that would be a warmer first contact. So, Deb, can you explain to us, how does it work? You've had a diagnosis, it scares the crap out of everybody in your family, and then they meet you. So, what's the process like?
Sure. So there doesn't necessarily need to be a specific diagnosis, although that's usually when I come into contact with families. There just needs to be some kind of cognitive impairment, because a lot of times we help people through the process of getting a diagnosis as well. So yeah, so I'm a First Link Care Navigator, which means our First Link program is designed that we're your first link when there's a diagnosis or if there's going to be a diagnosis. And so my job is to support and link people living with a diagnosis and their care partners to different services and programs, and introduce them to education if they need it. So it's really up to them to set their goals and the information they're looking for, the services that they're looking for, and then I help them access those.
Do they come in afraid?
Sometimes, yeah. Well, most often, I guess, because you can imagine, when you get a diagnosis, it's shocking. It's what do I need to know now? Like, what do I need to do now? How is this going to look in the future for me? And so I'm here to give them the information and to support them through the process, and to let them know really that you can live well with dementia.
I think today's show is really important because there are so many people that have no idea that the Alzheimer's Society even exists. And to me, I think you and I were talking about this previously, it's mind-boggling to me. I do understand that I've had a lot of experience in this world, but it's mind-boggling to me that more physicians or nurse practitioners or more people in the community are not directing people to the Alzheimer's Society with or without a diagnosis, as you were saying, but specifically with a diagnosis, right? Like if they have a diagnosis of dementia, of whichever dementia, because dementia is the umbrella term, right? Alzheimer's is
Yes.
a type of dementia, and then there's vascular, there's a couple of different ones. And to me, it's mind-boggling that if you're being diagnosed with it by a geriatric psychology or psychiatry or your family doctor or whoever's doing that, that the next step isn't to link you to the Alzheimer's Society. And those people often don't know what to do. They're often really scared. They're often overwhelmed. And that's usually when they kind of fall into our pot of people because they've found us somewhere. And so we're helping them with something, and then we're linking them into people. And I just wish I wish our healthcare was more proactive. Do you find a lot of people having to find you themselves?
We do get a lot of referrals from family physicians or hospitals or, medical professions. But yeah, sometimes it's they may not have a diagnosis. So they've been talking to their friend and their friend said, "Oh, well, um, I got help from the Alzheimer's Society, so you should probably give them a call." And then sometimes it's word of mouth, and a lot of people don't want the diagnosis. They don't want to hear the words that you have dementia. So a lot of, there's a stigma around that. And so families often just kind of deal with it on their own. And it isn't until somebody suggests that they get help from us that they reach out.
There's a super stigma, and I would even tell you that families that we go and see, we're told, don't say the D word, don't say the A word, right? Like it's a dirty word in some people's houses. And I'm thinking to myself, I understand because there needs to be a certain level of cognitive understanding about all that encompasses, right? But on the other side, as like a planner and someone who works in elder care, to me, there's a line where we can have conversations that are directed properly to include people earlier so that they can be included as opposed to wait too late and don't say it in front of mom. Because then you're planning over here, mom's still doing her thing here, but at the same time, if it's a move that has to happen or more services coming in or whatnot, she's the one that's going to be affected and she's going to be like, what's happening, right? I use mom as an
Yeah.
intro as a placeholder, but then you have to explain it anyway. And so why not include people in the process right from the start and just do it at a level that's reasonable?
Amy, I agree with you 100%. So one of the things that I do when I meet with families is first link assessment. So um, I always want to include the person living with dementia whenever possible in that discussion, because these are decisions that are being made about them and their life, and they should 100% have input as to what they want, right? And how they see things unfolding and where they want to be and what treatment they want to get or not get. So those are discussions that I have with the person and their family members to really include them, because that is so vital in this process.
So what happens when you meet with either the family or the individual, or the family that I guess wants to talk about the individual, um, just in terms of practical terms? So they go in, however their loved ones want to represent, and do they get ideas and resources? And basically, are you helping to educate them about what is available, specifically in Ontario, because we deal provincially in Canada with healthcare? But how does it actually kind of work? Like the nuts and bolts of it? Like, what do they get or find out?
Yeah, well, so it's about so what, first of all, I asked them, what are your concerns? What is your main concern right now? And then we go through a list of questions, and I get a sense of maybe where this person living with dementia is at in terms of their, capabilities, or what they can or cannot do at this point in time, or what they can or cannot understand at this point in time, or so it's really driven by my clients. What is it that you want? What is it that you're looking for? This is what I can offer. Once I have an idea of the situation and where everybody's at, then I can maybe suggest some things. And as to not, because there's so much information and so many services and things available to them that I don't want to overwhelm people. So we really try to focus in on, okay, so what is your need right now, and what do you want to know right now, because these are the things that we can offer you, or these are the things that I can research for you, or give you information on. So it's really driven by my clients as to what their needs are.
And because you're sort of the first point of contact, obviously it is going to be progressive. Do they come back to you, or are you sort of the launch point where then they get support from all the other people now that you've identified what it is that they need?
It's a little bit of both. So I'm always here and available for support, so they can call or email me at any time with any questions. We come up with a care plan, and then I will follow them. And at certain points in time that we've discussed would be suitable for them. It may be monthly, it may be every 3 months, whatever that time period is. I'll check in with them again and say, so how did it go? Like, did you connect with this person, that person, this service, or what else are you needing right now? Or, we have some education programs coming up, and they're running next month. So would you like me to sign you up for that? Or, so it's really on a continuing basis, and I'm always here for one-to-one support as well, and they know they can call me.
Yeah, because Amy, you talk about certainly with a friend of ours, and I'm not disclosing anything private because she has talked openly about this, but Sam LaPrade, it was important that her mom move in somewhere where she could stay at home but have her needs fulfilled as maybe things progressed.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
lots of people. There's lots of people that they do it all different ways, right, Debbie? There's lots of people that bring in care. There's lots of people that make a move to retirement or long-term care. I think often it comes down to how much support they can get from the people around them. Because caregiver burnout's real. And with dementia and Alzheimer's, I just find that it gets there really quickly. One of the things I was going to add on and ask you about, Deb, was, I've had a number of partners, like spouses and couples, where one has dementia and one doesn't. And I've spoken at the caregiving groups and different things like that. There's different groups, support groups that go around. And what's I find really difficult, I love your input in, is that the spouse that doesn't have dementia often is kind of left sort of holding the bag, right? They're the ones there constant, right? There may be adult children, but they're the ones there. And I find more often than not, these spouses get into a spot where, you know, to us as professionals, it's obvious that there's grief involved, which they might not be able to name. There's grief involved because they've lost their significant other. It's not the way that they wanted it. Things are different. There's a lot of overwhelm involved, right? They may have to take care of finances now, or the home, or whatnot. They're most often trying to keep their loved one with them at home as long as possible, but that impedes on their independence. I even had someone told me recently about a gentleman whose wife had dementia, and he was looking at doing the button locks on the front door because he wanted to go out and golf and he wanted to lock his wife in his house, and that was horrifying to me. But I think it stems from the fact that people just don't understand how to deal with it, and they don't know where to get help. And when they get the answer they don't want, that might impede on other things, they don't take it. And so, have you seen this type of stuff specifically with like spouses and partners?
Yeah, what I'm seeing the most of is an adult child contacting me first. Like the parents are still together, one has dementia, the other one's the primary care partner, and it's the adult child calling saying, you know, I'm just looking for information. I'm trying to help out my parent who's taking care of my other parent. Where do we go from here? And so most often it leads to a family meeting so that we can all discuss what's going on, and we can discuss how I can support the care partner and the person living with dementia with help from the adult children. And I've been seeing that a lot.
I think you're probably seeing that it's sort of the what we see too. We see the adult child more getting the help because, like in this circumstance, when there's like a partners or a couple, and the one person is taking care of them, they've got the blinders on. What I see more than often, not everybody, of course, but lots have these blinders on and they're managing, but they're sinking and they're not asking for help because some of them don't really understand that they need help. Some don't understand that it's out of their ball game, that they need to bring in extra people. And one of the sad, kind of scary things I see is that the level of frustration of the spouse that doesn't have dementia, it skyrockets and they get really mad at their loved one and they like, I've seen people yell at their loved one and whatnot. And I get it's from frustration, it's from sadness, it's from grief, it's from all of this stuff.
And
And
sometimes denial
super
that,
denial,
yeah, yeah,
right? And just trying to get them help, right? So lucky enough if they've got an adult child, but the ones that don't, they're kind of just stuck in this cycle until they get to a crisis. And for them, a crisis is usually pretty crisisy. Like it's usually pretty far gone where, if
right.
they were able to get the right contacts at the right time, um, people like us could have been able to navigate it with them and help them because just because you have this diagnosis or assume that you have this diagnosis doesn't mean your life is over. I mean, there's lots to do. There's lots of things that
Exactly.
are still relevant, but I just find that people get stuck and they don't know and they don't want to know.
But how do you two manage the, you know, inflexible, my dad, Navy man, proud psychologist. And before you guys answer that about, because like he was having none of getting tested, like flat out no. I mean, we had one of our one-on-one chats away from my mother, and he was having none of it. Nothing's wrong, but I will tell you, sorry, there is a hornet in my car, so if I start screaming, you know why. uh, but I will tell you, just for a bit of levity, is that his end stages were more related to his cancer than memory. But I walked in one morning, we're now in the palliative unit, and the nurse just says to me really casually, he made a run for it last night. Well, at this point he's 95 pounds. And I said, he made a run for it, and it was a locked ward at night, or I guess that's not a good ward, but anyway, it was locked down at night. And she said he made a run for it, and he decided to take all of his clothes off while doing it. And I thought, go dad. Like, he was like, I'm out of here. And I think probably in his mind, he was going to leave no trace, like, Tom Cruise in one of those movies or something, like no fingerprints, no hair left behind, no clothes. And I said, well, how far did he get? And she said, to the laundry room. I said, that's next door to his room. And she's like, yeah. you know? So, I did talk with him about it in kind of a funny way. And you know, sometimes you have to find the levity in it as well, right? It's like, Dad, where were you going? I hadn't worked that out yet. I'm like, okay, with no clothes on in the middle of winter in Kingston, Ontario. So there's some, but you know, to the question for both of you is that, you know, sometimes the person wants none of it. So what are the tips and tricks that our audience can use to kind of open that door to the conversation because they're noticing things?
You will go, Deb?
Well, I mean, we always tell care partners, when you're dealing with a person living with dementia, you need to be in their reality. So you need to be with them in their reality. As long as they're not hurting anybody, as long as it's, you know, it's not going to make a big impact on anything, you just go with their reality. So like that story was a prime example. It's just, you kind of go with it, you laugh about it, and you move on. But you know, you don't want to be correcting people. Like, if, for example, as you both know, my mom lives with a mixed dementia. So she's got Alzheimer's disease and a Lewy body dementia. And with Lewy body dementia comes hallucinations. So she has auditory hallucinations. So people talk to her all the time. And she talks back to them, and they have conversations, and sometimes they're pleasant, and sometimes my mom gets angry at them. So, but it's not something that I would say, oh, that's all in your head, you know, that those voices aren't real, or, you know, it's just something that you go with and you say, oh, so what are they telling you today? Oh, you're laughing. It must be something really funny. Or, you know, just to go with her reality, because to go against it would be very confusing and upsetting for her. And that's the last thing you want.
We've had a number of families in the predicament of like the loved one not wanting anything to do with it. I mean, that I think, right, Debbie, goes back to like, let's be proactive, not reactive as a society, but we're not there yet. And so there's lots of people where their loved one is still deemed that they can make their own decisions. They haven't been deemed incompetent by the doctor to make decisions or whatnot, which is really a really tough spot to be in. And there's other ones that have been that, you know, that their loved ones are making these decisions, but like they are not leaving the house, right? It's like when I deal with them, it often gets to a point where it's like we got to make a move, like really unsafe here, right? So like they're usually past where we can bring in a lot of resources into the house. Um, Unfortunately, the shitty advice I've had to give a lot of people is that sometimes you have to wait for a crisis. You have to wait for a fall. You have to wait for a hospital visit and then close the option of going back home and bring them to retirement living or whatever that looks like. Because, you know, I've had people walk out on meetings on us, like just not having it, right? And it's because it's gone so far that they're just really not being able to grasp what's happening. The family's not going to force them physically to do anything. Like they're not going to drag them out of the house and move them or whatnot. And we get in this predicament, which is really kind of garbage in my eyes, where it's like we have to wait for something to happen because they can't get them out of the house to get them safe. Meanwhile, the caregivers are burning out trying to bring in the extra care, trying to be on call all the time to support their loved one, which is why I'm so on point with being proactive, because maybe if we would have been able to catch it sooner, then we might have had a different outcome. But a lot of the times when we have this outcome, it's kind of way beyond what we can actually physically get done in the family, which is really scary. It's interesting because it's not the greatest advice I've ever given, but when I do give it, the family's like, yeah, that's what we thought. We just wanted you to weigh in. And it's like they already know that it's like gone so far that they're not being able to like make all the decisions they want. So it's really, you know, it's a really sad situation, really problematic, and especially more problematic if that person becomes a wander risk and is like starts walking out of their home and like going
Oh, like
wherever.
my grandma, like my
Yeah.
grandma. So maybe this is a question for both of you. in that Dr. Saskia from the Brain Institute was on our show and told us that she went and stayed in a long-term care facility, and she is younger than I am, and I'm 57, because she wanted to see what it was like. And she determined there were about 80% of the people there who had undiagnosed or diagnosed, but 80%. So there must be something, I would imagine, really rewarding about what the two of you do, because there is elder discrimination, and for them to be heard, particularly after a lifetime of work and caring for others, is so important.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a difference between normal aging and being diagnosed with dementia, right? Because we talked about, Amy mentioned earlier that dementia is just this umbrella term that we use for a set of symptoms that get worse over time. But underneath this umbrella are the different diseases that contribute to this term we call dementia, right? And sometimes, I see like normal aging and family members saying, oh, you're getting dementia, or somebody saying, oh, you must be getting dementia, or them themselves saying, oh, I must be getting dementia. But it's such a hot topic, and it's everywhere. I don't know that I've met
Everyone.
anybody who hasn't been who has a family member, a friend, a neighbor, somebody they know that's living with dementia.
No.
So getting back to your question, yeah, I think, we need to keep educating people and the public that there is normal aging. And yeah, maybe sometimes you forget your keys, or you lost your phone, or, doesn't necessarily mean you have dementia. But it's really important, as we talked about, to get an early diagnosis if you're concerned, because there are other factors that we term as like temporary dementia or reversible dementia, where there could be a list of other reasons why you're experiencing memory loss or other difficulties in your day-to-day living. And that's why I always encourage people, if they're concerned, see your family doctor, get a full medical workup, discuss things like depression and your sleep patterns and all of those things, because it could be something else. So let's rule that out first before you go jumping to I've got dementia.
What's interesting, Debbie, is that so this past weekend was World Alzheimer's Day.
Yes.
And I've been integrating my daughter, we've talked about her on the podcast, just into my life in elder care, and she's very interested. And we were talking about it, and she said, Mama, do you have dementia? And she said, your memory wasn't very good. And I said, because I've gone through a lot of trauma, and it was like a bust of bad memory. Like it just super fast onset, and it's getting better now. And so I'm waiting it out, right? Before I do anything else, I think it's caused by trauma. And so I had that conversation with her. But isn't that interesting? Because then I was able to say, like,
Ah,
so and so, well, their grandma has dementia, and I try to like relate her to different things, because one, it's a part of our society. There's so many people that have dementia and other types of memory loss or whatnot. And I just thought it was really cool that she was asking me those questions at the age of 7 to try to like relate it to, what's going on. So I thought that was really interesting.
wow. How insightful.
Right? Yeah, because
Yeah,
I've told her before,
absolutely.
I'm very communicative, and I say, like, my memory's not great right now. I'm working through it. If we could do X, Y, and Z, that would be very helpful. If I forget something, just tell me again or whatnot, because it did get really bad, right? So she's been living with that, and she's been really good about it. But I just thought like that was really cool that she asked and she was able to connect that dot.
Well,
Absolutely. And I
was
think we
I,
should be
oh,
talking more to younger people about the
yeah.
Yeah.
disease. And because, there's so many people that have grandkids and great grandkids, or, they're now living with their grandparent in the home, and so they need to be educated on the disease and how to respond to grandma or grandpa, or what things they should know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other part too is about women, right? Is um memory is impacted by thyroid dysfunction. Amy, I think you're like me. You take thyroid medication every day?
Not right now. No,
Oh,
we've
not right.
we've tested it. I
I
think,
do. I do. I
yeah,
think we talked
Okay,
about
I
that.
knew one of my besties took thyroid medication.
yeah,
But that's one of the first things, right? And I've been on it since I was 18. And the indicator wasn't my memory, it was rapid weight gain. But that also impacts memory, and thyroid affects women more than it affects men. But also, can you guys just talk to me before we have to go about the weight of the caregiving? Because we know that caregivers in Canada for anything are the great percentage of them is women. I forget the stat, but I read the Stats Canada report, and most women bear the caregiving roles in their communities and in their families. So, what can we do to support women?
That's a really good question. So what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a big trend in that women of our age and younger are having the responsibility of taking care of a parent who may have dementia, their own children, and balance that with work, their spouse, their family life, and it's really taxing on people.
Yeah.
So here's a stat for you. By the year 2050, more than 1 million Canadians will serve as care partners to people living with dementia. And the care they provide will be equivalent to more than 1.4 billion hours per year, which translates to 690,000 full-time jobs.
So we need to support those people.
We need to support those people. And if I would say, so out of all the programs that we offer and all the education we offer, I would say that what care partners want is real practical help. I need someone in here. I need someone to help me, to either respite or give me a break, or to come and help me actually physically do all of the things I need to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You know what? We not to not to plug what I do, but I think it's really relevant to what you just said is the fact that we started a caregiving grant called CARES for those people because all the caregivers have been so overwhelmed and some of them can't afford respite, right? We have the government system, but we all know it's like not really filling in the blanks. And so the grant is to either bring in home care or move to a residence for 2 weeks. And we had a big uptake on the grant because people are just like, they just don't have anything to grab onto. And it was great to have that kind of outpour, but super sad as well because I think that we're probably the only one offering this type of grant that I know of. And if there's viewers that know of more, please email me. I just think it's really important. I think that we just, whenever we can, we need to do more as a community. We need to do more as local business, more as government for caregivers. I think that it's just such an overlooked area, except for we're pretty much all involved in it. So it's like it's hard to say it's overlooked when we're all doing it, right? And it's pretty wild.
Well, this is going to sound a little assholery, but isn't it better to invest in the people who are trying to do it in their homes and with family support than have to build more seniors? Like, isn't this a good financial investment to support the people who are trying to do it themselves, but maybe need some help instead of just building more units to
It
house
is.
people?
I mean, it is, but the thing is that, last year, I think it was, or in the last couple of years, our government has said, home care, everybody stays home for as long as possible. To an elder care plan like me, that's cringy because it's not the right fit for everyone. And everybody's trying to fit into this box that might not fit everyone. And so,
Right.
it is a good plan. Bring the support to where they need the support. But there's just not enough support. There's not enough investment. I mean, I rarely see an agenda item about seniors, let alone caregivers. Like, there's not that much going on that I've seen in the government to really try to rectify this. And to your point, we don't have enough beds. We don't have enough retirement homes. We don't have enough long-term care. People that can't afford retirement can't really get into long-term care because the waiting lists are so long. We're stuck. And every single year that passes by, when our government specifically doesn't do anything, is more terrifying to me than the last. And I've been doing this 20 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, you're right. And I hear it all the time. Like, I can put my family member in a retirement home, but that will only last so long, and then we're going to run out of money. Or we can't even consider that because we don't have the money.
Yeah.
Or, I just met a person living with dementia who's just diagnosed, has no family or friends here, and wants to plan for the future. And one is proactive in trying to get his name on a long-term waiting list, but
It
he
won't
doesn't
take a
qualify at this time because he's still functioning. And it's like what's he to do?
I had a client like that the other day, and she said the same thing. What do I do? Because our system is broken, and the system is very much like, by definition, you can't get access or be accepted to long-term care or home care until you need it. And then when you need it, the wait lists are like 5 to 8 years long. So it's like, what do people do in the middle of that, right? There's just not a lot
Well,
out.
usually what happens is a crisis. A
Yeah.
crisis happens,
Yeah.
and then an emergency placement has to be made. You know.
Well, and I said to this lady, I said, like, I get how the housing system works, and it's, I only go into so much detail, but it's not great. And I said, the way you could be proactive is by doing everything around it, right? There's nothing saying you can't go and pick your top 5 long-term care homes and get that done. There's nothing saying that you can't have an application to know what's on it to have that information done. So like the second that you can apply and be accepted, you have the stuff, right? There's nothing saying you can't talk to someone from the Alzheimer Society or talk to us at Tea and Toast or anything. Get the extra support, build it around this one post that's not going to move. Just build everything around it, figure out your plan, and then when that post finally moves, then implement.
I
Which is kind
feel like I need to tell you both, having lived in your houses, both of you, that, I'll have a plan, I promise.
don't even get me started, Timothy. It's just,
It's,
it's sad, but it's
yeah,
unfortunately it's the reality, and we have it better than lots,
yeah.
but still don't have it great.
To your
And,
point, to your point, Tim.
sorry, I
Go
was going
ahead,
to say,
Debbie.
you
Sorry,
can't go to the Alzheimer's Society. For those of you that are watching this, I mean, you know, you'd be investing potentially in the future of your family, but as a not-for-profit, they do accept donations to help other people. I'll say it, Deb.
Thank you. I was just going to say, to your point about having a plan, and that's one of the other things we talk about. What's your plan? What are your wishes? Do you have a will in place? Do you have your power of attorney set up? Are all those things taken care of so that your loved ones know what they should do? So they're not making the decision on your behalf when they didn't know what you wanted in the first place, right?
Just before we wrap up, Debbie, can we have this come from the horse's mouth? That you're the horse. Can we have this come from you to say that I don't think people understand, right? So we're talking about powers of attorney and will. The will is for when you die, which is important to have. Don't get me wrong. I need people to get their powers of attorney, and I need them specifically when people have dementia or any form underneath that umbrella, because if they get deemed to be incompetent of decision making, that is it. You cannot change it. And so people get stuck with nothing, and then they can't do anything, and people can't help them make decisions. It is a mess. So I would love your input on that.
Well, yeah, I think it's important. I mean, I'm looking at it right now too. It's important to have, especially when you have a diagnosis, because as I said, then people are making decisions for you that maybe they don't want to be making, first of all, and they don't know your wishes. So um, there's powers of attorney for health, and then powers of attorney for financial. And so you can have the same person doing both, or somebody separately doing each. But important to consult a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I don't advise on legal matters, but I can say, like from my own experience, me and my two sisters have power of attorney for my mother, but when we were considering long-term care, they come in and do an assessment, and they assess whether or not she's capable of making the decision to be on a long-term care list.
Yeah.
No matter where she is in the dementia journey, right? So they make the decision. And for the longest time, she was saying, nope, nope, nope. And she was deemed capable of making that decision. And then it came to a point where she was deemed incapable of making that decision. And then that's when the power of attorney took over. And that's when me and my sisters needed to make the decision about her placement in long-term care. So there are different points in time where this power of attorney is going to come into effect. And it's important to have right at the beginning, because then you don't have to worry about the day that you become incapable of making your decisions about your finances, about your health care, your medical decisions. That's already taken care of, and you've chosen the people you want to make those decisions, and they're clear about what your intentions are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Debbie, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on with us. I hope we've helped some people. Reach out to Debbie if you're in our area, or the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. I mean, I just referred somebody to Regina to this morning for the Alzheimer's Society. So I think that's a really good spot if you've got someone that has memory loss. And just to start somewhere, right? And if they don't have the answer that you need, then they probably have another answer that can direct you. So I think it's really important, as a community, we share resources so that people can find what they need when they need it. So thank you so much for coming on today, Debbie. We really
Oh,
appreciate
thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to see you both again.
I got to see my girlfriends.
it. And to everyone who's watching us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and get notified to help us grow. We love you for it. Thank you so much. And until next time on The Inner Shift, we will see you then.